Rail Operation Deutsche reported widespread disruption in several increasingly trains cancelled or rerouted. In Nuremberg, streets were covered and the hailstones that sized Boll and Augsburg. Thousands of people were left without power overnight due to power outage. Meteorologist Dr. Leon Weber from the DVD explained, "This was not a typical summer storm. We observed a rare combination of typical Mershu and Arctic air masses holding over Central Europe, creating a line of severe thunderstorm and destructive winds. The storm also caused enormous damage to agriculture, especially in southern region, where field barley where the corn were destroyed just weeks before harvest. Agriculture unions are calling for emergency aid to compensate the damage, but they could run into €1,000,000. German Interior Ministry Nancy Faeser posted the heroic work of firefighters and rescue teams who saved dozens of people trapped by the flood. She also warned that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent, linking the trend and ongoing climate change in Europe. Munich was hit by a sudden and violent hailstorm that turned a Bavarian capital into the city under siege. The storm, which broke out late in the evening, pelted the city with a hailstone the size of walnuts, in some areas even tennis balls. Windows were broken, roofs were punctured, the car looked and they have been shot at. Within minutes, the central boulevard, the side streets were covered with ice, quickly flooding due to cooled weather. Public transport came to standstill, trams and buses were stand halfway, and subway stations were flooded by torrential rain mixed with hail. Munich airport temporarily suspended takeoff and landing, with the ground crews cleared the runway of ice. Emergency service reported thousands of calls in just few hours. Hospitals treated dozens of people for cuts, burns, and a heat injury caused by fallen debris and broken glass. At least one death have been confirmed and several more people remain in serious conditions. Residents described it by a terrifying moment when it storm hit. The noise was deafening, like stones falling from the sky, said Anja Fischer, whose apartment window was shattered in Schwabing.
Sabete, ja tu és jako jeusiko, ez? Joskerrak ez dutela ipinit ondoa. Hau da, benetan, impresionantea. Hau da...
Europe is riddled after the wave of powerful storms swept across the continent, bringing hurricane-force wind, torrential rain, hail and flooding from Spain to Poland. Authorities have confirmed dozens of fatalities and hundreds of injured, with hundreds of thousands of households remain without electricity. In France, Paris and Hamburg by heavy rain is a lighting force to close up the metro lines and grounded flights to Charlotte the airport. Streets and flying and borders turned into rivers. An emergency crew reported more than 5,000 clouds overnight. Germany also brought to bread with a tornado-like wind North Rhine-Westphalia, ripping roofs to homes and uprooted trees. Rail service were suspended, highway blocked, and the school closed to official urged residents to stay indoors. It felt like the sky exploded, said Jens Fischer, with so-called lifted to overturned by sudden gusts. In Italy, Venice and Milan were swept by the flash floods, while the Rome endured the violent hailstorm that shattered windows and damaged cars. Authorities warned to rising river levels in the north, in the fear of further flooding in the Po Valley. Spain forcing massive coastal swells and lightning storms, particularly in Barcelona and Valencia, with Poland and Czech Republic struggled with the power cuts and transportation shutdowns after gale force winds across Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days while thousands of travelers were stranded with the train station. Insurance provider estimates that the damage could reach billions of euros after gale force winds across the Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days with thousands of Mediterranean said the storm system was following the coastal line by Mediterranean air called Atlantic Front, creating a volatile chain reaction across the Europe. Scientists the climate change is making such extreme wide-reaching weather events increasingly frequent. Several European nations have been struck by a wave of violent hailstorm, leaving behind the scene of chaos, destruction and disbelief. From northern Italy to southern Germany, Austria and parts of France, residents awakened the road crowded in ice, damaged vehicles and crews destroyed it in the fields. Meteorologists say the storm were followed by the clash of moist Mediterranean air with a strong cold front from the northern Europe, creating a supercell condition. Hailstorms are some larger than golf ball pounding the city center and rural area alike. In Munich, cars were left with the shattered widespread, while the Bologna, Italy public transport was paralyzed. The hail-covered tram stack. Agriculture Associational report severe losses. Vineyard in Tuscany and orange in Austria suffered significant damage, for the farmers described the storm as worse than the case. One farmer near Verona lamented, "In 10 minutes we lost what we had worked for all year." Emergency services were inundated with vehicles. Dozens of injuries were reported, mainly from the falling hail and the raw accident caused by sudden ice flakes. Firefighters in Austria rescued motorists stranded on a highway blackened in ice, while the France-Rhone Valley flooded added the crisis and a hail-blocked drains. Video shattered widely online showed iconic city squares buried under a layer of ice, sparked disbelief among the viewers. Tourists caught in the storm described as apocalyptic in the like winter in the middle of summer. Experts warn that Europe have seen a rise in extreme hail events in recent years, while the climate change likely intensify with wildly. Scientists note that the winter air cold most may issue falling stronger storm capable of production large destructive hail. Several people suffered minor injuries from the blocking glass and the fallen branches. Rain traffic forced its disruption, with the Deutsche Bahn warning delays could continue due to overnight repair work. Agriculture damage is extensive. Hail destroyed it was the vineyard, cornfield and the orange. Local farmer John Mayer said they lost nearly its entire harvest. In the 10 minutes of year work washed, insurance companies estimated damage will exceed 100 million euros. Power outage occurred in several towns due to lightning strikes and hail damage in power lines. In Bavaria, some schools and public institutions remain closer to structure damage assessment and safety inspiration. Climate scientists point out in the phenomenon highlighting Europe's increasing vulnerability to extreme weather. Hailstones to magnitude were one of the rarer, state climate scientist Dr. Catherine Hoffman, but his global warning process the emergency in the atmospheric increasing, making storms more intense. After the storm passed, the sky cleaned, a relative and surreal landscape is gleamed in the ice-shattered glass. The resident, it was a night in terror and astonishment. The chilling reminder of even in one of Europe's most developing countries of the power nature can strike without warning.
Tornado. É tornado, louco. Minha Nossa Senhora, tá voando tudo as teias.
Germany continues to deal with the aftermath in the storm. The extent of the damage is becoming increasingly clear. In addition to the immediate damage, long-term environmental the economic impact of the extent, the agriculture sector, although vulnerable due to previous unpredictable weather conditions, is facing potentially devastating losers. The agriculture sector, although vulnerable due to previous unpredictable weather conditions, is facing potentially devastating losers. Initial reports from the farmers indicate the groups such as wheat, candy, barley have severely damaged by the floods and events, especially in key agriculture regions such as Slowly, Saxony and Bavaria. The storm also caused damage on livestock farm where the animals will be evacuated due to rising water level. Agriculture Association were calling to government to provide emergency aid, warning the immediate action to not taken. The economic consequences could be severe. In the densely population Rus region will be hit by significant flooding. Authorities are now forcing to restoration basic service, water treatment plants and temporarily overloaded due to heavy rain, leading concerns about the confirmation in some areas. While official issue assure a public that the situation was under control. They urged residents to bathe the water and precautionary measures until the flooding notice. Environmental agencies are monitoring rising lakes and possible checked lakes to industrial facilities that were flooded during the storm. Concerns are growing the population could have a long-term impact on local ecosystem, including the fish wildlife population. One of the key challenges facing the authority is restoration of vital infrastructure. In some regions, brigades have had damage completely washed away by the flood waters, leaving isolated communities without easy access and neighbor town. Engineers are working to assess the infrastructure integrity of this brigade, but it could take months on the fully repair or replace them. Damage of roads, railroads, and power lines is also highlighting Germany's urgent need to invest in a climate resilience infrastructure. Experts have long warned that much of the country infrastructure is not adapted to the extreme weather events and becoming more frequent as the global temperature rise. Germany Green Plan, which has been a leading voice of the nation's stronger climate policy, to call a mandate action. Party leaders noted the storm is another example of consequences of an action of climate change. The storm has also intensified the public debate of Germany's energy transition. Engineers weighted the aid of the country resilience of the fuel for a renewable source and the wind as solar power. The government makes significant progress in transition, creates agriculture more need to be done to ensure that Germany's energy grid can be cope to extreme weather conditions. After the storm, some renewable emergency facilities such as wind turbines, the damage of high winds, raising questions about to make renewable energy infrastructure and more weather resistant. Germany is looking to the future, and this is a wake-up call not only the political but also the general public. Discussion about the climate change resilience are no longer abstract. The devastation severe crisis down at farms across the country is brought to issue the forefront of the national consequences. It's not the growing to issue to federal and state government stretch disaster preparedness strategies and provide better protection to communities for the future storm, floods and heat waves.
Mira, los bomberos, ya vienen, ya vienen.
A powerful storm swept across Europe, leaving a trail of destruction. Storm spanned Germany. Across and the offshore, it is one of the most destructive weather events of the continent in the last decade. In France, coastal towns in Brittany and Normandy were hit by winds up to 115 km/h, which tore roofs, houses, and forced ferry service to be cancelled. In Paris, sudden flooding inundated roofs and led to closure to some section of the metro. It felt like the city was flooded in a matter of minutes, said passenger Julien Maru when they through waist-deep water. Southern Germany, including Bavaria, reported hailstones the size of a golf ball that smashed car windows and damaged crops. Authorities confirmed several injured, and insurance companies warned that damage in agriculture could run into tens of millions of euros. Spain and Italy also experienced chaos. The streets of Valencia turned into rivers after 100 millimeters of rainfall into 2 hours. In Sicily, passed strong gusts of winds and left thousands of people without electricity. The storm raged all night, recalled Sicilian resident Lucia Romano. "We couldn't sleep, afraid that the roof might collapse." A wave of intense hailstorms swept across Europe, leaving behind broken roofs, destroyed troops and devastation communities from Italy to Germany, France and Poland. Meteorologists described the event as one of the strongest hailstorms in the recent year, caused the collisions of hot southern air and a fast-moving cold front that swept across the continent. In Italy, especially the areas around Rome and Emilia-Romagna, the storm was accompanied by thunderstorm winds and hailstones the size of walnuts, which pelted cars and roofs and a thunderstorm roar. In a matter of seconds, it was winter, said local resident Luca DeSantis. The streets turned white, we could hardly see anything. Several motorists were stranded off ice-blocked drainage system, flooded tunnels and city roads. Further north in Bavaria, Germany, the storm caused chaos in communities near the Munich and Augsburg. Cars were damaged, routes were uprooted and public transport was halted. Local authorities received more than 1,200 emergency calls in a few hours. Germany was hit by a powerful and fast-moving storm that swept across the country overnight, leaving a trail of destruction from Bavaria to North Rhine-Westphalia. Strong winds exceeded 120 km/h, torrential rain, intense lightning strikes disrupted transport link, damaged infrastructure, and caused hundreds of emergency rescue operations. In Munich, streets remained flooded after hours of continuing rain. Trains stopped running, flights and French Joseph's train airport were delayed, and a passenger forced traffic jams. It was terrible. The wind howled like a train and the rain poured down sideways, said Clara Hoffman, a local resident whose balcony was destroyed by the storm. Further north in Cologne and Düsseldorf, powerful gusts of winds uprooted trees and smashed cars. Emergency service responded to more than 2,000 calls, including flood in basements and damaged power lines. The German Meteorological Service issued the highest weather warning, urged residents to stay indoors. Sadly, at least 2 deaths have been reported, once in Bavaria where tree fell on a car and another in Saxony due to flash flooding. Authority warning that river levels, particularly on the right and Elbe, remain dangerously high and continuously rainfall reserves. A powerful storm has swept through Germany, caused widespread destruction and significant damage in several regions. The storm, which brought heavy rain, strong winds and flooding, affected both urban and rural areas, forcing authority to issue numerous warnings and close major transportation routes. The northern and central parts of the country were hardest hit, with wind speed reaching 113 km/h in some areas. Coastal region forces storm surge were led to temporarily close to parts of the shipping homes. In major cities like Hamburg and Bremen, the storm caused delays and cancellation of train and flights, while downed trees and damaged power lines left thousands of without electricity. Emergency service responded to hundreds of calls, cleared flooded basements, collapsing roofs and blocked roads. Firefighters worked throughout the clock to clear debris and rescue damaged buildings. Despite the chaos of fatalities, none were reported, although several people were injured by falling branches and debris. In rural area, farmers reported significant damage to crops and livestock. Floodwaters swept through the agriculture fields, raising concerns about the impact of oncoming harvest season. Local authority in affected region is currently assessing the damage to preparing for possible financial assistance to support recovery efforts. The German Weather Service issued a severe weather warning ahead the storm, advised residents to avoid unnecessary travel to stay at home. Many schools were closed to safety reasons and a public event are cancelled. Meteorologists warn that extreme weather conditions in Germany are becoming more frequent in climate change and contributing and increasing in intensity of the storm and floods. This is not the first time Germany has had to deal with the extreme weather conditions, but the frequency and severity of such events rising constantly about the countries rated the further challenges. Authorities have urged citizens to take weather warnings seriously and ensure to their homes and advise protect to the storm and flooding. As the storm moves eastward, northward contact and also high alert to possible flooding the storm damage. The full extent of the damage in Germany is still by assessed, but recovery force in expected to the several days is not weeks. Germany was hit by its most severe hailstorm in the recent years, with giant ice pellets reaching 5 cm in diameter battered cities and towns of Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg. The storm, which erupted suddenly in the late afternoon, turned streets into rivers and ice caused severe damage of vehicles, roofs and crops. Meteorological from the German Weather Service described the storm as high unusually from the time to year, explaining that atmospheric instability, the most air from the southern Europe, contributed to this formation. The meteorologist Anna Krüger stated that was a classic example of supercell activity, adding the storm developing rapidly and dropped destructive hail within a minute. In Munich, window shattered into pieces and vehicles were parked by the contrast hall as emergency service responded to hundreds of calls. Public transport was temporarily halted to clear debris and ice from the track. In rural area, vineyard and cornfields suffered extensive damage, with the initial estimate suggesting agriculture losses could exceed 15 million euros. On a Monday, tornadoes swept through the area and North Parish, knocking down trees, construction cranes, killing one person and seriously injuring 4 others, authorities say. The town of Airmont, located about 20 km northwestern of Parish, was hardest hit, with a sudden wildbeat damaged about 10 neighborhoods. Regional professor Jill Rebraz said 23-year-old construction worker died at a construction site and 10 people were injured, for them critically. Authorities said the tornado knocked down cranes and turned uproot. Interior Minister Larry News said of Platform X that was a storm, a sudden of rare intensity. He added, "I am closely monitoring the situation and experienced by a supportive official. Rescue at the scene the affected residents. I offer my condolences on the family and loved one of the deceased." Paris, the French capital, was brought to a standstill on a Wednesday, and the night a sudden and violent storm swept across northern France, unleashing torrential rain, fires, winds, and dramatic lightning over the heart of Paris. Within just 19 minutes, more than 100 millimeters of rain fell in the hardest downpour recorded in over 2 decades. Bavaria was hit a severe hailstorm that caused chaos in the town and villages across the region. The storm, which swept across southern Germany late in the evening, pelted town with a hailstone the size of a golf ball, smashed windows, damaged cars, and injured dozens of residents. In Munich, town and buses were halted as hail covered the streets, and traffic on the abandoned slowed the standstill under the impact of the sea. In smaller towns, roofs were damaged, and emergency service reported thousands of calls waiting with a few hours. Dozens of people were taken to hospital with the cuts, burns, and head injury caused by the flying debris in collapsing buildings. Witnesses described horrific scenes. The hail was so long that it's impossible to hear each other. Within minutes, our garden looked like it had snowed in summer. This is Thomas Sheldon, a resident of Augsburg. Video posted online showed cars covered in a layer of ice and trees stripped in their lives in the storm. Bavaria agriculture sector was severely affected. Vineyards in Francolina, for fields in Helter, the ledge area of corn and wheat were destroyed in a matter of minutes. Farmers warned of crop losses that could reach hundreds of millions of euros. Residents described a scene of chaos. "It sounded like a gunfire," said Markus Vogel, where a car was wrecked by the storm. Within the minutes, the ground was white of winter. Flights were delayed at the Munich airport. The local authority advised residents to stay indoors until the severe weather subsides. Power outages were reported to several areas due to fallen trees and damaged power lines. Climate experts warned that such extreme weather hail damage could become more frequent as a Europe weather pattern shift. We are seen to increasing and severe storm triggered by warm air masses to rising humidity, said climate scientist Dr. Lisa Bernard. As the sky cleared, a recovery efforts began across southern Germany. Residents walking through the night clearing debris and assessed the damage. Authority pledged financial support and affected farmers to homeowners. The many storms severely struck reminder of nature growing unpredictable. It demonstrated that even in Central Europe, weather can shift from the calm to catastrophic in an instant. Year of work were destroyed in half an hour, said farmer Kathia Weber, several devastated fields. Air traffic was also disrupted. Munich International Airport reported numerous flights delayed as a ground crews worked to clear runway and ice and debris. Train service were suspended on several routes after tracks were blocked by fallen branches and damaged power lines. Insurance companies have already begun assessing to damage which could run into the billion, making the storm one of the most expensive hailstorms in Germany's recent history. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused by a rare combination of the most Mediterranean air cold into the North Cold front and phenomenon increasingly linking to climate change. Bavarian officials promised to provide rapid assistance to residents of farmers, while scientists warned such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent. For many residents of the region, this hailstorm will be remembered not only for this sudden force, but also as another sign for changing climate reality in Europe. Madrid has been plunged into chaos after a powerful storm swept across the Spanish capital, bringing torrential rain, gale force winds and flash flooding that left entire neighborhoods underwater. In just few hours, more than a month was in rain, overwhelming drainage and transformed streets into fast-flowing rivers. Cars were swept away, metro station flooded, and power lines collapsed, plunging parts of the city in darkness. It was terrified, said Lauza Fernandez, a shop assistant who was received from the standard car. The water rose so quickly, I thought I would make it out alive. Authorities confirmed several fatalities and dozens of injured. Hundreds of residents were evacuated from basements in low-lying homes and emergency service working around the clock, often wading chest deep through the floodwaters. Public transportation suffered severe disruption. Madrid metro network were particularly shut, while train and buses forced long delays. Barras International Airport suspended flight for several hours, stranded passengers amid scenes of confusion. Tourists were also caught in the chaos, with landmarks like Puerta del Sol and Plaza Major submerged. Videos shared online showed hailstones bouncing across historic squares and water pouring down the steps of the Prada Museum. In surrounding region, farmland was badly hit. Vineyards and olive groves were inundated just weeks before harvest, threatening significant agricultural losers. Economists warned the storm financial toll could run into hundreds of millions euros. Meteorologists explained that the storm was triggered by a clash between humid Mediterranean air cold Atlantic front intensified by record summer heat. Experts warn that climate change is increasing to frequency such extreme weather events across Spain, already one of Europe's most climate vulnerable nations.